I was just checking my angles. 2, 3, 4, beep, boop, 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 It's Wednesday. I'm in. Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name's Jimmy. I went to the comical book store picks of the week. First pick of the week this week is not actually from this week. It's from last week, and I forgot to get it while I was there. It's the Silver Coin #1. This is written by Chip Zdarsky and drawn by Michael Walsh. This is yet another horror anthology. I think over quarantine, everyone has watched all of the Twilight Zone for some reason. So, I mean, I had even started another rewatch, and I was like, do I need to watch this entire series again? 5 times? This one is written by Zdarsky and drawn by Walsh, and I believe the next one will be written by Kelly Thompson and drawn by Walsh. I believe this is Walsh's baby. Michael Walsh did the thing I know him from, he did a series with Ed Brisson called Comeback for Image Comics back in 2013, but to be quite frank, I do not remember a single thing about it. I thought it was another book at first, and I was like, no, it's not that one. But it was written by Ed Brisson, whose work I do enjoy, generally speaking, and so I'm sure it's good. As you can tell from the cover, this also appears to be a rock and roll based story, which I don't know if this has come up in the course of this very, very popular web series, but I'm a YouTube influencer now. But the hell was I talking about? Oh, rock and roll and comic books do not mix, unfortunately. That's, so far anyway, has been the case. I want to say there are exceptions. I mean, I know Kiss did a couple comics, and Kiss really, if anyone was going to make that bridge, especially in the 70s, it would have been them. But generally speaking, comics about bands are terrible. Comics about music are terrible. I still haven't read Phonogram, which I do. I do like that creative team of Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey, because they also did that's Hickman. The Wicked and the Divine, which was a title I'd mentioned on this a long time ago, and I couldn't think of the name of. But even that it was about rock and roll, but it was more conceptual. There's just, I don't know, man. I feel like, and this is definitely generalizing, but comic books are too dorky for rock and roll to really be effective. Whenever comic book artists, writers, whenever comic book creators try and capture that feeling of rock music, and whether it's in a live capacity or just a sort of slice of like band practice, or it's wrong. It's never right. I don't know, it's very weird. I feel like Big Talker over here should maybe try, because I don't want to brag, but I've got a lot of experience with the rock and or roll music. But I mean, I don't know if I could do it, to be honest with you, so I'm not trying to run down anybody. Having said all that, with Chip Zdarsky at the helm, I'm not too worried about it. The guy is a very good writer, and he's also just generally seems to know what he's doing. So, obviously, I will report back to you on that. It's because, I mean, I would have said the same thing about stand-up, because stand-up in general, whether it's in a comic book or a movie or TV, it's always like, that's not how that works. But then there was that comic book Knock 'em Dead that came out, or started coming out late last year. Yeah. Or mid last year, and that really captured stand-up for a change, so maybe there's hope. Sorry. I also, this week, I got Spider-Man: Spider's Shadow #1. This is also by Chip Zdarsky, which I did not plan. He and I did not get on the phone this morning. If you can tell, I don't know if you can see it here, this is technically part of What If, which is, well, not an imprint necessarily, but I guess kind of. So the premise of this miniseries is, what if Peter Parker had become Venom, instead of getting Reed Richards to shoot a sonic cannon at him and get the costume off of him, the alien symbiote, who then would eventually bond with Eddie Brock and become the character Venom that we all know and love. What if he didn't do that? And I don't think it's the first time, I can't imagine it's the first time that What If has come up. So What If, for those not in the know, was a series that began in 1975, and the first issue was, what if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four. Because in the very first issue of The Amazing Spider-Man, #1, it's usually the first issue, he tries to join up with the FF, and they say that kook has rocks in his head. And, he doesn't, obviously. But that, 12 years later, I guess it would have been. Something like that. What if? So that was the whole series, would be different. And it was, I think at first it was Lee and Kirby. Or 75, was Kirby gone and then back yet? I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't Kirby then. But it was a good series because, it was all kinds of stuff like that. All these alternate timelines where things went slightly differently. The version I actually was more familiar with was the second series, which started in 1988 or 87 when I started collecting comics. And so one of the first ones I bought was #6, which was What If the X-Men Had Lost Inferno? And that was the first that I remember of them getting really dark with that sort of thing. There's a lot of what ifs. So you're just like, Jesus. Like, everybody just gets slaughtered or something. And I believe that happens in that. But it was super cool as an 11 or 12-year-old. And then the book, to be honest, kind of just went downhill from there. It stuck around for a long time, that series. I want to say it made it into the hundreds even. And then it got canceled in the mid-90s along with most everything else. And since then, they will occasionally do like a one-shot or what we used to call a fifth-week book where it's like a series of 5 single issues or something like that. Or I think they've done the occasional mini-series since then. But this is the first time I've seen What If on a comic book cover, even if it's... now they're branding... It looks like they're branding it as more of an imprint, which I guess technically it kind of is at this point. So, yeah, I like alternate timelines. I like alternate dimensions and stuff like that. And in all of my escapist literature, that's always something I'm into. So that should be fun. Especially, again, Zdarsky at the helm. You got no complaints there. And then finally, Darkhawk, Heart of the Hawk #1. I didn't see this one coming. I'm not sure who the creative team is on it, but it says, celebrating 30 years with creators of the past, present, and future. The ironic thing is, I've never met anyone in my life who knows who Darkhawk even is. Even in comic books, he's not the most popular character. I didn't even really read the book very much, and this 30 years is now... Jesus H. the Lord. So in 1991, when Darkhawk came out, that was the same year that the Fantastic Four celebrated their 30th anniversary. And I remember as a kid, I was 13, or soon would be 13. No, I was 13, and then I turned 14 that summer, yeah. So, what was I saying? Yeah. So I didn't care for Darkhawk myself back then, but I did like the Fantastic Four, and I remember like, oh man, 30 years, that's crazy. So now the Fantastic Four, obviously, it's 60 years, and now Darkhawk is at 30 years. What kind of sense does that make? And that was a lot of that in the early 90s, because that was 1986. Marvel celebrated their 25th anniversary because they were counting it from 1961, which was the first issue of the Fantastic Four. Since then, they have kind of retconned that. So we're now at I don't know the math, but instead of counting it from 61, which is the Silver Age, they counted it from 1939, which is the Golden Age. 38, I think it's 39. So now they're at, they had their 80th anniversary a couple of years ago. Check my math on that. Check my math, and then check the oil on my car. It's making a noise. Oh, so anyway, yeah. So, but in the early 90s, all of these books from the 60s were, so there was the Fantastic Four's 30th anniversary, the Avengers' 30th anniversary was 93, Spider-Man's would have been around in there between 91 and 93. Obviously a lot of the Silver Age books. And they really made a big deal out of it. And that was really the first time since the 25th anniversary that they had done that. And now they do it every 5 years without missing a beat. So, why not? Why not start this tradition again, celebrating Marvel's second Silver Age, the early 90s. I'm sure we'll soon have the anniversary. Now I can't think of any of these C-list characters. Slapstick's 30th anniversary is coming up. Red Rooster, obviously, his 30th anniversary. There's so many bad characters that were created. I mean, Darkhawk was one of the few to get his own title. Now, again, having said that, I didn't like Darkhawk as a kid, but I've since revisited those early issues, and they are fun in a bad '90s way. Darkhawk, that character, has actually become. He's not. It's really strange that they're making a big deal out of this because, aside from appearances in like your vast cosmic sagas, like I think he's been in all the Annihilation books, which have been 3 of those so far, I think, and he'll pop up in like War of Kings and Realm of Kings, any big story that takes place out, like the cosmic stuff out in space. Darkhawk is usually something of a minor player. I think he was kind of a villain there for a minute. Because I like the cosmic stuff, but to be honest with you, I never read a whole ton of it growing up, and I only kind of I'll read it now and really enjoy it and then forget all of it. I don't know why that is. So I don't know. Maybe they're again. I keep wondering these things. I wonder if they give U.S. Agent his own series, and then guy shows up in that TV show. So it's all. I would if Darkhawk doesn't show up in a TV show or in the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I will be very, very surprised. In the meantime, though, I will, like with that U.S. Agent series, enjoy it without realizing that it's. I don't know, man. I feel like I've said this before, but back when like Iron Man came out and those movies, the early MCU days, the Marvel would then start to kind of bring the books more into line with that continuity, which bothered me at first and then stopped bothering me and now is starting to bother me again. And I think it's largely because now it used to be like only I knew who the hell U.S. Agent was. And now he's a character in the MCU, so now every idiot knows who he is. It's not a big deal. It's not keeping me up. It's not making me angry like it would have if I were in high school right now. But it is a bit, it's starting to get a little bit like, all right, Jesus Christ, I get it. You guys watched WandaVision. I don't know what to tell you. But, I mean, shit, if it's going to get more Darkhawk comics, I mean, I guess we'll see if this is any blah, 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 blah. All right. And now, so as you'll recall, I didn't have a whole lot last week because this was a huge week for me. There's like 25 comics or something like that, which is, I mean, a decent week is like 10 to 15 books. I can handle that. 25, that's bananas. That's now we're getting back to the old days. But these were the only books that were like, again, kind of new. It's like they're shipping all the books that I'm already buying. So last week, which I also did do, I bought that, and then I also bought Second Coming Volume 1 from Ahoy Comics. So, how to be... Okay, this was fine. This was a perfectly suitable read, not unlike Captain Ginger. I feel like at this point, Ahoy is kind of batting 500, which is a pretty good average, and also I bet you're surprised that I used a sports metaphor. So, the story was good. It honestly, and like the sorts of moral quandaries and the kind of spiritual questions that books like this, even if they're silly and satirical, obviously they tend to raise questions of like, why is God and who is Satan and will he hang out with me? And I like that. And like that was kind of food. And can be perfectly frank with you, I was having kind of a rough week, and a lot of the stuff I read in here, I was like, oh, this makes me feel better about it. Ironic because this didn't make me feel better because it was very good. It was fine. Again, I can't understress that enough. It was perfectly fine. For one thing, this has been done to death at this point. The whole, I mean, and this is going to sound very dumb even to me, to my own ears, but after Preacher, it's like, what else do you got? They've had other books like since then, like Battle Pope was one by Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead fame, which I didn't bother with. I mean, to use Jesus as a superhero, it's a pretty obvious premise for the edgelord days in which we live. I mean, obviously they weren't doing books like this back in the day. Well, actually, I mean, you can trace The New Adventures of Jesus was the first comic that I was aware of that used Jesus as a character, but that was by Frank Springer. I can't remember. I have the collected edition of those, which I haven't read, but they were like underground classics, And but those were But those were just like kind of comic strips that he wrote and drew based in biblical times. It wasn't a mishmash of genre. In this one, you've got this Sunstar, I think his name is clearly a Superman analog. And God sends Jesus to live with him to learn about life on Earth, I guess. It's all kind of muddled. And but yeah, it's fine. It's like I say, but it's not bringing anything to the table as far as that goes. What I read also was even better was Man-Thing by Steve Gerber, Volume 2. I can't say enough about this. But Jimmy, you already have. Well, I'm going to anyway. So what I noticed on this read through of Man-Thing is that, for one thing, Mike Ploog should be way more famous than he is. Like him and I can't remember the inker's name now. There's a few issues though that he drew. Ploog drew a bunch of Ghost Rider too. He was very well suited for the 70s at Marvel, because he was very much, more than any other Bronze Age artist that I can think of, even more so than Bernie Wrightson, I would say, just absolutely the heir apparent to the EC comic stable and those horror comics of the 50s, which are, even at the time, were considered to be classics. I mean, not by the man, but those horror comics have withstood the test of time, and their look especially was very influential on Ploog's generation. And Man-Thing was really the place to showcase that in the mainstream. Swamp Thing, which was Bernie Wrightson, was all Bernie Wrightson. Man-Thing got kind of passed around, but Gerber did stay as writer. Here's the thing about Steve Gerber, and this is what I was thinking about this morning when I was trying not to think about my own love life and lack thereof. So Steve Gerber created the Man-Thing in 1971. And he is so far with, maybe, I mean, a couple of people have gotten close, Jeff Parker I'm thinking of in particular, but no one has nailed Man-Thing to the degree that Steve Gerber did. I mean, he created the character, so obviously has that. But here's the thing here's what I was thinking this morning, which makes it even more so. So Man-Thing's powers, such as they are, he can't talk, he can't even think, he can't reason. He's a creature of pure empathy. He only can, I don't want to say communicate with emotion, because he can't make any kind of, he's just a faceless, basically brainless, literally creature, a man-thing, if you will. And so he just bops about in the swamp until somebody brings their negative vibes into his vicinity. Oh, good, I managed to make this 20 minutes already. And then when they do that, then he reacts at them, and usually, you know, he doesn't come over and go, hey, could you not bum me out so much? I'm the Man-Thing over here. He just has to shamble over, and everybody freaks. It's Gerber. Man-Thing is Steve Gerber. I'm not a genius for having pieced that together, but from what I've read about the guy, which is, you know, extensively, I would say at this point, he was such an emotional wreck, and, like, not surprising for a writer, just highly sensitive, and everything was a thing. Like, to read about, like, his correspondence with, he was from Missouri, he's from St. Louis, and when he was trying to get a job at Marvel, because he was working as an advertising copywriter, which he hated, and so he would write to Len Wein, I believe, or Marvel, and some other guy, you know, guys that were of his generation but had already kind of established themselves in New York. And I remember it was a quote from one of his letters. It was, "Please help me, I am dying." Now, I am completely willing to go, yes, of course you are. You're a brilliant writer. You should be stuck at a copywriting job. But at the same time, it's like, could you tone down the drama? That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I think Steve Gerber's wife had her work cut out for her once. But he seemed like a really nice guy at the same time. He was just very emotional. So it was really, reading these books now, knowing how delicate or how sensitive Steve Gerber was, it's really, he put so much of himself into these comics that it's amazing to me that they're not more well known. I think even in comic circles, there's obviously like cult followings, but god damn, the Steve Gerber Man-Thing. I think that's the other thing too, is because he also created Howard the Duck in the same book, And that was the big breakout character, and that's probably what Gerber is going to be most well known for, at least in mainstream circles. Like if I were to try to explain to someone, a normie, who Steve Gerber was, I go, well, he created Howard the Duck. Are you familiar? Oh, sure. But that wouldn't explain it at all. This is really good. I think there might be a third volume at this point. I'm not sure. I can't really buy any more comics to find out this second, but you get it. It picks up last week. Okay, so, gosh, I really thought I was going to keep this to be short again. Keep this to be short again. Who writes this crap? All right, where's the goddamn? All right, that's it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.